Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. Today, I'm joined by an amazing guest, but before I introduce them to you, I want to ask that you please like and subscribe below. That way, we can continue to bring you these incredible stories. And if you're already liked and subscribed to our channel, we thank you for all of your support. Today's episode, we are with Eric Day. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing good. Of course, we've been together most of the evening already as we're getting ready to do this podcast. What we're going to do in this podcast that's a little bit different is I'm going to talk a little bit about Asperger's and more commonly known as Autism Spectrum Disorder. And I'm going to interject a little bit of things from a parent's perspective because there's so many people who know someone that has it, or it has someone in their family who has it. And after I kind of go down that, you're going to actually show us and tell us what it was actually like living with Asperger's. Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Fantastic. I appreciate you coming on. You know, a lot of times these things are hard to do for some people, but again, with Truth Talks, what we're about is helping people get through something, share a similar story, and your story's amazing with a great ending, and I can't wait to share it. But I'm going to go through the first thing, which is the Asperger's syndrome, right? When you meet someone that has Asperger's, you might notice two things right off. They're just as smart as other folks, but they have more trouble with social skills. That pretty much explained you. You were always in the top of your class. You were always one of the smarter kids in there. But when it came to communication, a lot of things went south. They also tend to have an obsessive focus on one topic or perform same behaviors over and over. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we get to your story. Today's Asperger's syndrome is technically no longer a diagnosis. It's now called Autism Spectrum Disorder. So it kind of, when they change some things around, some people may get confused, but now it's just kind of lumped into one big category. When you were diagnosed, it was Asperger's. That was a diagnosis that we got. There's certain things that's called high functioning, which is what you were. It's included a diagnosis also called social pragmatic communication disorder, which has some symptoms that overlap with Asperger's. But that's where people who have trouble talking and writing but have normal intelligence. You really didn't have much trouble talking and writing. Matter of fact, you talked way too much. You talked all the time. We'll talk a little bit about our home videos so that you can confirm that to our audience.
Oh, yeah.
They start early in life. You may notice that they can't make eye contact. That was something that we certainly noticed with you right off the get-go. As a matter of fact, it was one of the things that was really hard for her when you were a child. It seemed like you would go with just about anybody, and you would have a lot of difficult time making eye contact. And there was that kind of wonder if you truly made that connection. But I think as people hear your story and how you lived with Asperger's and got through it, I think it'll make a whole lot of sense as we get going through this. They often miss social cues. Again, couldn't explain you to a T. And what that is for body language, people's expressions, somebody could be really mad and you'd be like, hey, you want to go play? Or somebody's gonna be like, get away from me. And you didn't accept those cues. But quite honestly, I think it actually worked out in our favor. And again, when your story comes up, we'll see that. Another sign that your child may show is few emotions. They don't smile, they're not happy. Again, when you talk about a spectrum, everybody's going to have a little bit of differences, but you were always a happy child. You tend to find all the happiness you could until it wasn't happy, and then it went completely to the opposite spectrum. So your emotions definitely swung pretty hard either way. Oftentimes you get fixated on objects, music, books, series. That was you as well, right? And so when we were looking up everything that had to do with Asperger's, it was like it was walking straight down this aisle. And for the audience that's out there now, there was so much more information than what we had. When we took Eric in to really get the first initial diagnosis, it was almost like there was nothing known about it. We had taken you to a whole bunch of different people, and no one could actually tell us what was going on. As a matter of fact, when you were little, you don't remember this because you were awful little, but you had a spinal tap. They thought that perhaps the crying had something to do with some sort of infection, a meningitis, and so you went through taps, you went through test after test after test, and it was really frustrating for Mom especially because I didn't become your dad till about age, 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there. Mom's going to kill me for not knowing what that age is, but
I'd say like 4.
It was 4. Another thing that you had that kind of triggered us into something was going on. You had a lot of problem with textures with food, which seems to be another thing that's pretty common with Asperger's. You would be comfortable with exactly what you liked, but if we changed it up at anything, including cutting it, making it look different, anything else, that would throw you off and again, lead to a bad day. Couple things that we want people to know, and I still think it's important today and relevant today. They always talk about who do you see when you think your child has Asperger's or when you have an autism spectrum disorder. We were fortunate, very fortunate. We had Dr. Albert Mell, who is a pediatrician, and he was very proactive kind of guy when it came to Asperger's or autism. But we had you to a psychologist, we had you to a pediatric neurologist. Mom even took films of you crying and writhing in pain to the neurologist. And they said, yeah, looks, he's healthy otherwise. We don't know why he's crying. We don't know why he goes into this rage. It was actually quite depressing. It was a hard thing for us because you can't imagine that a kid can cry that much and be that much in pain, but yet physically you were completely healthy. Everything checked out neurologically on you. Cognitive behavior therapy. This is one that's really popular now. This was kind of dad's role. That's where you push the buttons and you make them get through the emotion. What's my favorite line?
Suck it up, buttercup.
That's right. We called it cognitive behavior technique. I don't know if that's not what I called it, but I called it you got to learn real life. Real life's not going to treat you nice, and we would put you in situations where we knew that you probably wouldn't be successful, but I can't wait for you to tell your story because it actually panned out, and it panned out perfectly. Parent education and training. I'm going to bring this up now because I really don't want to spend a lot of time on it because we as adults make a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of things that go with this, and we're not going to hammer on it. However, when it comes to parent training, one of the things that was interesting is you were also a product of a divorce situation. And your mother and I, we tried to take everything in the exact steps that we could. But as you were transitioning to different households, there was a different set of rules, different allowances of what you could and couldn't do. And that certainly didn't benefit you, that we believe. And so for parents out there, if you believe you have someone on the spectrum, you've got to set absolutely everything aside, and you must care for that child. And Eric's going to tell you his story of how that became a little bit of a problem. Here's your turn. It's time to get going. You and I listened to this last night, and we thought it was amazing because you said, yeah, it's exactly how I feel. But one of the ways that it was described was Asperger's is like a baby born in Japan will naturally learn to speak Japanese just by being surrounded and immersed in the language and the social cues around them. But Asperger's is like an adult getting taken to Japan and having to learn everything for the first time. It was much harder. So I'm going to ask you right now, it's your time to shine, my friend. Tell us when you first realized something was wrong.
Well, I realized that something was wrong around like first or second grade because before that I just didn't really have like enough like thought process to think that something was wrong. But in first grade and like second grade, I noticed like I'd be going to like eat lunch in the cafeteria and I would sit down with a group of people and they would just ignore me. They would like let me sit with them. They weren't the kind of kids who would like physically move to get away from me, but they just ignored me. And I like tried to add myself into conversations, but they would like look at me maybe just to satisfy me, but they'd continue on their own conversations like I wasn't really there and I wasn't really part of it.
Do you recall that like vividly?
Not really vividly because it was a while ago, but I can think about how like I was treated in elementary school. Like kids would like pick on me and stuff, but being who I was, I would see it as them like making a joke. Like in second grade, we had like a musical that we would do, and the character that I played in it was named Constable Blarney, and all the other kids would like laugh at me and say, "Hey, look, it's Constable Baloney walking down the hall," like because that was as creative as they could get at the time. The first thing that came into my mind was, "Well, you said the name wrong." I didn't process it as bullying. I just said, "Well, they just got the name wrong. It's probably a mistake."
Which is kind of, again, part of the issue with Asperger's. You didn't take the social cue. It was
Yeah.
instead it became very literal, and you were like, yeah, you said the name wrong.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Keep going down the whole spectrum as you went through middle school, because you were talking about a whole lot of things that really made a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, like different things, like leading into middle school, just I didn't really process it as being that different, but I could tell something was off. Like I was in these like little clubs for people who like me were like hyper, had some form of autism, and I'd always think, well, why am I in these clubs? Why the other kids don't have to do this? Why am I in these? It didn't really click that much until when I first got into middle school because I started like going into like a specific classroom with a teacher who like worked with kids like me who were on the spectrum, and that's when I first was started thinking, why am I still here? Like I didn't really see it as much as a problem in elementary school. I thought it was a bit weird, but when it kept happening in the middle school, I started to think that something might have been wrong with me just because of everyone else that was in the room with me and stuff like that.
And you used a term about those kids. What term
Yeah,
did you use?
I didn't really think about it before, but when I was in those classrooms with those other kids, I would think, oh, these guys are kind of weird. Like I didn't see them as normal. And then after that, like after thinking about it for a little bit, I realized that that's what other people thought about me. They thought that same way about me. So around that time, I started becoming more of like a very empathetic person. Like every time, like someone did something mean to me, my first thought in my head wouldn't be like, oh, I'll do something mean back or say something mean back. My first thought was, well, what if I was in their shoes? How would I feel if someone like insulted me and stuff like that? So I stopped using the term like weird and like these guys are strange and weird. I stopped using that term around them and with a lot of other people because I just realized that other people wouldn't like to be called that and I wouldn't like to be called that. So I just decided to be a nicer person like that.
And that was a realization that you made on your own just through how other people treated you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Talk a little bit about obsessive behaviors.
Well, I would always be obsessed with a little thing like it would be like snap of a finger, like how fast I would change interests. I could be totally obsessed with like reading all of the Harry Potter books and watching all the movies, and then the second I like pick up my Nintendo and start playing Pokemon, I'd get into a whole Pokemon phase, and it would just continually pass like between different things. Like if you took me to like Universal Studios, they usually play some of the soundtrack for the from the movies in the park, and I could name what scene that soundtrack came from because I'd watched the movies so much and so many times. It became like I knew everything about it. I had to know everything about it to be satisfied. That scares a lot of people out from playing Harry Potter trivia with me because
You will crush them.
I will crush them. I have a great memory just because of obsessing over it for a while.
You know, one of the things that comes to mind when you mention that was actually one of the first times, too, that Mom and I decided that, listen, if we can find something that he can be good at and maybe something he can carry on with life, this guy's going to be really good at it. But we kept thinking about that time, wait a minute, is this a curse or is this a blessing? And I want to talk a little bit, because you know this, we got to go meet Temple Grandin at a seminar because Mom and I spent as much time and energy and research we could trying to figure out what we could do to make your life better. And Temple Grandin, she said something to me that just fired it off right about this exact same time when you were in school. And she said, I want you to think about a church steeple. And she was talking, most people will explain what a church steeple looks like. You know, it's square and at the top it has a cross and so on and so forth. But people with Asperger's can tell you exactly where they're all at. And that was you. That was you in a grocery store. You would hear a note and know exactly what that was. Your language was way better than most kids your age. So that was about the exact same time that we were like, man, if we can harness him in and focus him in on a passion that he becomes obsessed with that will further him in life, it was amazing. And we're going to get to where that came from. Tell me about that middle school experience, though.
So in the middle school life for me, like I said, I started becoming more like aware of that I was different and people were not treating me normal. So whenever I sat at lunch tables and people wouldn't talk to me, I wouldn't just accept it like I would have in elementary school. My brain started like coming up with a million questions because I'm like a kind of person who like overanalyzes situations if they're not literally explained to me, since I'm just very literal. So when other students wouldn't talk to me, I would be thinking like, did I do something wrong? Do these guys hate me? Like, what can I do to make it better? And it just evolved into me becoming a just like my self-esteem was very low because I just thought that I was doing something wrong and I couldn't really fix anything. And I became more of a like shy person. I didn't want to talk to people unless I was addressed first. Uh, like you would have to like add me into a conversation. Like that person that we listened to, he's saying someone with Asperger's would be like opening a creaky door all the way, and you'd have to learn how to just creak it open slowly into conversations. I would be the kind of person who would stand outside of the door and wait for permission, wait for someone to say, "Oh yeah, you can come in," and then I'd open the door. Like it wasn't really just I'd try to talk with people. It was just that I didn't want to talk with people because I was afraid that I'd like mess something up and they'd just not like me at all.
And how did that transition into you, again, becoming this empathetic person? How did it transition into this person you are today?
It kind of transitioned when I got into high school because all of my friends from middle school, I always act like it was like a whole bunch of people because when I say friends, it's just all the people I knew from elementary school into middle school. I only talked with like 5 to 10 people constantly through middle school. It wasn't a lot of people, but I knew a lot of the other students because I went to the same elementary school as them. But they were going to a separate high school than I was. They were going to like a high school like a 10-minute drive away while I had to go to a high school across the street. And I was like really mad at that because I didn't want to start over with new people, but then I kept like thinking about it like, wait, I have a new chance to like start over. And the people that I start over with at this high school will not know the old me who was very, very hyperactive in elementary school or just socially awkward and more of an introvert in middle school. They'll just meet me who I am now. So I could start like a new impression and get new like friends and stuff because they hadn't known me for that long. They wouldn't have seen how I was beforehand.
That's an incredibly powerful statement.
I didn't ever say it out loud. I always just was upset about it, and you just say, you just gotta have to deal with it. You just gotta have to power through it. You won't die, even after I continually asked to be homeschooled.
That was a funny time in our relationship
Oh yeah,
because I'm like, but did it kill you? But did it kill you? It ended up being the best thing that could ever happen. But I remember you telling me that story before, and I just thought that was the most powerful thing because I think as we kind of rewind this book a little bit, you know, those 4 or 5 kids that you did hang out with though in middle school and in elementary school, you know, there's a lot of kids that don't have anyone to hang out with. And I think we should throw that in here now, how important it is if you see that kid struggling, sitting in the corner, kids need to find a way of including them. This is something I certainly want to hammer home in this podcast that those 5, 6 people probably changed the entire course or direction of your life.
yeah, for sure. Like the people I did talk to in elementary school, they were like people who, like we had similar interests. Like one friend I had has like ADHD, and we'd just obsess over multiple things together. So we were like, hey, we're similar. We should like talk more. And I'm still friends with him today. I met him like almost like in 2004. I've known him for like almost 18 years, and we still talk. We still hang out just because of similar interests we had as kids.
And I think we're going to hammer this point home when we start talking about high school. So let's go ahead and talk about the rocky road into high school, though.
So yeah, like I said, I had like no friends going into high school, but I tried to keep an open mind about having a fresh start, but all my brain was letting me do was cry, and it wasn't really that fun. But when I first started band, because I did percussion back in middle school, but I wasn't really that good. Like our situation was we had like little bell sets that all the higher up people in percussion would play, and then the people lower would get to play on these big marimbas. And so I didn't really mind being a bad percussionist in middle school because my only thought was I get to play on the cool instrument, not those stupid bell sets. This is awesome. And so going into high school, I didn't know how to read notes. I knew how to read rhythms pretty well, but I always learned how to play in concerts by ear. I'd always look at the rhythms that I had in the music, and then I'd hear the band play the notes for those rhythms, and then I'd just find the notes on the bell set, just looking down and just tapping on the notes until I found the right one. And that's how I was able to get through concerts back then. When I first got into high school, I just like stood in the corner of the band room and didn't really talk to anyone. I knew one person who was my neighbor across the street at the time, or her grandma was anyways, but she often stayed over. And I stuck like close to her until I was forced to join the other people who were doing drumline because she played flute. And everyone was like really just nice to me. Like they came up to me, they're like, "Oh, hi, my name is like this, and do you need any help with anything? Where are you from? What middle school did you come from?" And I was surprised because I was like, no one's ever talked to me just like normally. They've always just treated me like weird and stuff. So I thought that was like a nice start to high school at least.
So the crying and saying you're going to be homeschooled and you're not going there, even at 14, it was an okay deal.
It was all right after it started.
The applied behavior technique that Dad used, which was suck it up, Buttercup. You're not going to die. That's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
So you get in there, and I want you to tell the story of Robin. I thought that was another powerful moment.
Yeah. So right after the first day of band, I was just like not really talking with anyone. I just like put the drums away and then started to leave. And then this other girl in the drum line, her name is Robin. She just comes up to me and says, "Hey, do you like Five Nights at Freddy's?" And I played that in middle school, and I was surprised because I was like, "Oh wait, someone just approached me and tried to start a conversation with me," because I was totally new to that. So I was like, "Oh yeah, I play the games." And then we entered this like conversation about the game and everything, like normal. Like it wasn't like me asking for permission to start the conversation. I just was brought into it just one-on-one, which has never happened before for me. It opened my eyes just saying, wow, this is cool. Like people aren't calling me weird or treating me like I'm weird or just treating me like just empty space at like a lunch table, like in elementary school. Like I was actually seen for the first time. That's what it felt like.
And we also talked even about middle school, though. Even you couldn't read music. You were playing by ear, so you're kind of faking your way through it to a certain degree. But you were really good at it. Even, I mean, people who play by ears, it's pretty amazing talent. But you did say one time that you love the performances because it was the first time that you got to participate in a group and that people were actually watching you do something you're good at.
Yeah, like in middle school, I did get to do band concerts, and I really enjoyed them because I got to perform in front of like an audience. I got to be seen by people, and it just felt like people weren't ever clapping for me specifically besides like you, my family, and the audience. But I just felt like special. Like people are like applauding me for the first time because I'd never experienced anything like that where I like helped contribute besides like a school play in elementary school. That was really it. I just felt like more special in band. I felt like things were like going better in band because of just like feeling good about doing percussion about then and stuff. Like I took like drum set lessons between 5th and 6th grade. I never stuck with it, but I could do rhythms pretty well. So being able to like contribute to that always felt really cool.
So then you get into high school, but things again, they don't turn out quite as good as what you think, right?
Like for high school, I did marching band, and I only talked with 2 people for the entirety of that first half of the school year. They were the 2 people who I played the rack with. The rack is just a little iron cage looking thing where you hook up a bunch of accessories like cymbals and like the bass drum and gong. It's just a whole bunch of extra stuff, and I only ever talked to the 2 people I played in there with. Their names were Aaron and Carlos. And even after that, winter percussion started, which was just all percussion, no flutes or trumpets or anything like that. And Aaron and Carlos didn't do it that year because Aaron moved away and Carlos didn't do it. So I was like forced into another position where I was doing something with a bunch of people who I didn't talk to. So I started to become like more secluded until we got to learning how to read notes, because I got music with notes in it for the first time. I got to play like the marimba and xylophone for the first time in that show. And I remember like saying out loud, well, I don't know how to read notes. I'm probably going to suck at this because of the low self-esteem. And then a girl right next to me, she was like, oh, well, I know how to read notes. And then she taught me how to read notes. And things went like really well after that point.
Let's call her out by name, because people like that are so important in a person's world. That was Sarah, right?
Yeah, her name was Sarah. She played the flute, I think. But she just helped me learn how to read notes for the first time, and things got really easy after that because I could play rhythms well, but now that I had the ability to read notes, I just got like way better all of a sudden, to like a point where at the end of the school year, I got the most improved award out of all the freshmen, and I really wasn't that confident in myself for getting anything like that. I didn't think I really did that well, but to get something like that was just like amazing.
And do you believe that was still part of the Asperger's, that it would always creep back up on you and say it would give you that lower self-esteem?
Yeah, it always crept back up. Anytime something good happens to me, something in the back of my mind is always like, well, I don't deserve this. There are people who are way better than me at like this thing, like percussion. Other people should have deserved this, but then I have to just come and realize that I actually am like that good at what I was doing, and that I do deserve that, and it like made me pretty happy about it.
Which is a progression, because all the life before you would have never happened, and now this new progression is starting to unfold a little bit.
Yeah.
You had that experience where you got the most improved, but then again, you kind of get chopped down a little bit.
Yeah, like around my sophomore year of high school, I started to like get more into the into world class ensembles. My friend Chase in high school, he recently performed with the Blue Knights. He auditioned but didn't make it that year. But he got to do he got to control this big crystal in the show that did a bunch of lights and everything. But he got to go to WGI, which is World Championships. Everyone goes to this one place in Ohio and get to perform. And he showed me a bunch of those videos and a bunch of those other groups performing, and it really got me like the obsession came back up, and I just kept thinking, I really want to do this. This looks like super, super cool. That would be totally awesome to do this. So I practiced for like the end of that year, going into my my junior year, and then when I finally went to auditions, I didn't make it the first year, and it really like took a blow on me. Kind of sucked.
I remember, yeah, it was emotional for you, And then I did a little bit of my cognitive behavior therapy.
You just said, suck it up, Buttercup. You just got to try again for next year.
And it worked. But I think what I think is important kind of right now in this part of the story is the obsession did kind of come back, but now the obsession is starting to work in your favor.
Yeah, I still have like obsession tendencies. It's not like as bad as I was as a kid. Not to the point where like I'd carry around all my action figures with me just because I like them all. It's not that bad now, but I started to use that to more like learning how to read notes and learn music extremely fast. Just like I could play something like once, and then I just remember how I did it that first time, and then continually play it the same. And I learned music pretty fast. I always remember I would we would learn new music, and I would be the first person done learning the music, just because I learned how to like tone down the obsession enough to where it was just with minor things like learning notes and getting new music done fast. And I used that to go back into practicing for the Blue Knights again. I continued to look over everything that I missed the first time and like basically perfect it to the best I could at the time, so I'd be able to make it in for the next year.
Okay, well, they keep going. Tell us the progression of that.
Yeah, so I went into auditions for my senior year, and like the last day of auditions, I like was stressed out. Like I would refuse to eat lunch that day just because I was scared. I wanted to make it so badly, and I'd done my best to make it, and I just like I was just totally stressed out that day. And at the end of the rehearsal or the auditions, I get called in and was told that I made it. And again, with that low self-esteem, it came saying, you don't really deserve this. You shouldn't have made it. But like just being in like awe of the whole situation made that not really come to me as much as before. And I just was like super pumped that I made it. And it was like just an awesome moment because I got to see how I did everything from band from high school and now in a professional perspective.
And it moved pretty rapidly when you took your obsessions from a lot of different things that seemed to bother you and you focused in on something that you actually loved, which was music. And I think it's important to highlight that the Blue Knights is a world-class ensemble. I mean, it's world-class.
Yeah.
So to make that is pretty amazing. Like, it's very, very, very difficult to do it, and you hit it. But we've talked about this before. There was still kind of that self-doubt that would creep in a little bit. And we've even listened to other videos of people who've had Asperger's and kind of their story, and it seems to be a theme, right? But you still continue to progress.
Yeah. Like I said, I got to see everything I've done in high school up to that point from a more professional standard. So like beforehand, I'd watch an old show that I did and say, "Wow, I did so great in that show. I don't think I could have done better." And now I'd watch it and say, "I sucked. That was awful. Like there was way more I could have done."
And so what was living with Asperger's, which is obviously the topic that we're talking about today, and kind of showing that progression, how you started to turn your obsession into something that you absolutely loved and wanted to do. Where are you now? Where does that obsession level come in? Do you feel like Asperger's is still affecting your life today, or have you actually harnessed it and now using it for your benefit?
I still feel like it can come into play sometimes. Like if I'm hanging out with friends and I get like too into the mood, I can get back into my old hyper self again. And I'm a kind of a person who will like crack jokes in conversations pretty frequently, and that's usually just because beforehand not being into conversations now, I feel like if I like just project myself more into conversations and make people laugh, it'll make me feel like I'm more part of it and make me feel like people need me in that conversation more than just being a loner back in like elementary school, not talking to anyone. I do feel like I have harnessed it better though. I have gotten better with talking with people. I don't seem like so socially awkward when I talk to new people. Like I feel confident going into like a Target trying to buy like a Kit Kat or something. I can go up to like a checkout and just casually like say, yeah, here's the money and whatever, instead of just being like, oh gosh, this is weird. But
Which that's a real thing. And a lot of people and I mean, you're 20 years old, and a lot of people don't understand how that stuff does flood your mind. We saw it. And one of the things, the reason that I wanted to really do this podcast, especially during Autism Awareness Month, we love you more than anything, and we still didn't know a lot of the stories that were going on in your head. Mom did. She checked on you like crazy, ridiculous amounts every day, every story, everything. But, I know there was some depressed times. There was times that were up and down, and a lot of times we worried about you. And we worried about you on a level because of the communication with someone with Asperger's. It is different. A lot of times you wouldn't talk about things, but we knew it was bothering you, and we're like, "What's going on? Why are you down? Why are you not talking?" We could tell your mood shift dramatically in our household, but I think when I look back from a 30,000-foot view of this, there was a whole lot of times when I didn't realize how bad it was for you, or how much your mind was actually talking to you.
yeah, because of that over analytical side of me, I usually prefer to not tell people about like my problems, because I feel like it'd be like an inconvenience to other people. So whenever you noticed me in a bad mood, I was always just thinking, no, they probably wouldn't want to help me. They'd just feel bothered by helping me and stuff like that. And I could still feel like stuff like that if if I do like a mistake that I feel like would make you guys upset, I would always just keep it to myself. And I just wouldn't say a single thing about it, because I'd be like, they'd get mad, and I wouldn't want to make them mad or make me feel uncomfortable. So that can still come into play sometimes, that I don't want to step out of my comfort zone into other things. Like I remember you once when we started to get my debit card, you told me to go just to go and get it myself, and I freaked out because I was like, no, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this by myself. I'd rather have someone go with me and help me. So it could still flare up like that a couple times.
And I was like, "Suck it up, Buttercup. You gotta learn it." But I did go with you.
You did go with me.
I didn't want to, but you know why I did?
Because it would have been really awkward.
No, because Mom made me. Because I believe in, I mean, we didn't really recognize you as that different. We just wanted your life to be good. And when you feel like someone is upset over really meaningless things, or things that are really not going to affect you in life, that's the part that really made me feel down about the whole thing. I hate it when you were hard on yourself. I hate it when you were, you would do something good and then immediately kind of run yourself down to not take the accolades or whatever it was. That bothered me a lot, because I kind of just felt like, man, I know it's in that brain. Like, I know it's in your brain. I know you can't control it. And it's a really hard thing as a parent to watch that and to feel that. And there's nothing you can do about it, because it's neurological. And you're just like, my God, how do we help you out of the situation? Which is why we love running these types of programs, because somebody listening tonight, they're gonna hopefully, maybe somebody will go talk to that kid that's over in the corner. Maybe somebody will say, hey, you know what, come to this party. We know you're a little different, but come to the party. It's just a big thing that really impacted your life. And I, as a father to you, I'm appreciative for the Aidens. I'm appreciative for the Sarah. I mean, wow, what if she didn't teach you how to play the notes, right? You might have quit. You may not be where it's at. The Robin, for taking that one moment and just saying, hey, how about Freddie's, when without those key moments in life, your entire life changes. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, for sure. If I didn't have those people step into my life and be impactful for it, I could still be super introverted like I was in middle school, or I could still have been really hyper and out of control and been more rebellious and stuff like that, like how I was like in elementary school.
Yeah, you were always a great kid. You've never been anything but actually quite perfect, to be honest with you. It almost worked out to our advantage. You talked way too damn much, and you drove us crazy because you wouldn't go to sleep. We one of the things that somebody had asked me had saw some stuff that we had done on Asperger's when Mom was on the show, right? And they were talking about, now you have the weighted vest, you have all these different things, which are probably all great techniques. No, you had a leg laying across you at night till 2 or 3 every single morning just to get you to fall asleep. Now we can't wake you up. So there's always hope. Everything goes good. But I want to end this conversation with one thing. There's a couple other things I'm going to ask you, but I really want to end it with this. I want to announce it to everybody what just happened to you. What just took place in your world?
Just, I've been doing a bunch of winter percussion things, and then someone I performed with who's now a staff member for the winter percussion and drum corps, his name is Julian. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you going to audition for the Blue Knights drum corps?" And I said, "Maybe. I don't know for sure right now." And he was able to convince me to at least check it out and try it out and see how it went. And I ended up actually making it, which is something really hard to do because it is a step up from winter percussion. It's like the top you can get with being a performer. It's just something I didn't think would happen. And when I got notified that I'd made it, the first thing that came into my mind again was, I don't deserve to make it. I shouldn't have made it. But I just toned it down and I was like, no, this is awesome. I instead of saying I shouldn't have deserved to make it, I thought I just can't believe I made it. I made it more positive thing.
It's like the NFL. It's like the major leagues. It's as high as you can get. And that's why I wanted to end this tonight, because it was something that from this kid that couldn't read music to finding music, which was your passion, and to follow it all the way to the absolute top of the pinnacle of the music world, you nailed it. And we're proud of you, man. It's a huge accomplishment, and it's something that, it took you harnessing all of that obsession, harnessing all that stuff into something really, really, really good. Mom was amazing at putting you in everything, to try everything, and you hated everything from baseball to karate to everything we put you in, you hated, right? Because it was more of an individual thing or a group thing, and it just didn't work.
Yep.
But we're so happy that we kept you involved, and finally you found that thing that absolutely makes you who you are, right?
Yeah.
So we're extremely proud of you as parents. Asperger's is no joke, and we've seen videos of people that just suffer for their whole life, and we see other people that they have a little bit different variations, and they can't quite seem to get over that edge, but you managed to win the game, my friend.
Yeah.
So we're super proud of you. We should probably end this with, you probably ought to do a plug for Grandma, because Grandma's listening to this. There's nobody more supportive of you than Grandma.
Yeah.
So you get to say whatever you want to Grandma right now.
Oh, boy. Hi, Grandma. I'm happy to talk about myself because you've heard this 1,000 times. Sorry I couldn't plug where I get my haircuts.
You can plug it.
Oh, I get my haircuts at the Main Design. I forgot where it is, so you just got to look it up.
That's wonderful. Again, that's something else that you were blessed with, is you've had family all around you who supported you. That's huge. Your grandparents have made every possible show, everything that you could possibly do in the good times and watched you cry in the bad times. I think that is probably one of the most important, if not the most important thing when you're dealing with somebody who has somewhere on the spectrum. Just that support was amazing. But again, Mom and I, wickedly proud of you, my friend. You've done a great job. I do hope you get a job and get out of the house pretty soon, though, because I'd like to have that back. Because that's another thing that I think is really kind of funny in this whole thing. You always thought about these marimbas, and we listen to them and how loud they are in the gyms. Well, we have them in the basement, and you guys don't seem to go to bed till like 2:30 in the morning after beating on those things all night. But
Oh yeah.
you know what? For Mom and I, we'd stay up all night to make that possible for you. So
Oh yeah.
we love you to death. Thanks for coming on the show. I think you
Yeah.
did an amazing job at explaining what it's like to live with Asperger's or autism spectrum disorder.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.